What's up, everybody? I'm Taylor. I'm powerless over life, but not my reactional life. I created this YouTube channel to share my experience, strength, and hope, and what I've been through in early recovery and how I maintain my emotional sobriety. I want to talk about psychiatric medications and mental health issues, and this is based on my experience and what I've learned from other people since I've been in 12-step programs. About 2 years ago, I decided to come off of 6 or 7 high milligram psych meds, one including a benzo. I had been taking benzos every day since I was about 15 years old. I had been taking anything I could take every day since I was about 12 years old. So 10 years ago, I decided to get completely sober. And my mental health was the worst it had ever been. I couldn't even leave the house. I couldn't be around people. I was manic, anxious, racing thoughts. My past was just flooding me in my head 24/7. It was horrible. And so I surrendered and I went to a psychiatrist, and that's when I started my journey with psychiatric medications. Now, I might have gave the impression that I am against psych meds, but I've never stated that, and that is not the case. For me, I knew taking that many psychiatric meds was not good for me physically, emotionally, or spiritually. I had to get to a point where I questioned myself and questioned my motives. Why am I taking this medication? What am I escaping? What am I avoiding? What am I trying to bury? I had to really examine my motives for taking the medication to begin with. 10 years is a long time to be on a journey with trying this med, trying that med don't work, and I would have brief moments of like relief or happiness, and then something else would happen. I mean, it was just insanity. And for me, I had to get to the point where I realized, okay, medication is not going to help me heal from my past. Medication is not going to help me cope with my emotions. I have to learn how to cope and regulate my own emotions, and that's very hard to do for people who come from a very dysfunctional home, or come from people who are not very, nice to them growing up, and trauma and addiction issues. All these things contribute, I feel like, to mental health disorders, and it's been about 2 years since I've been off my meds, and I never said, oh, I need to get off my meds and I'm never going to get back on them again. That's not what my intention was. My intention and my motive was, let's detox my brain from all these psychiatric medications so we can get reevaluated to see exactly what is going on with my mental health. And it took almost a year to completely level out. The first 6 months was the hardest. And I know if I wouldn't have had 12-step programs, and if I wouldn't have continued to force myself and involve myself with 12-step programs and doing the inner work that I have done, there's no way I would have made it through that. There's no way I could have made it through that without relapsing. For several months, all I wanted to do was drink and die. That is how I felt inside, like an empty, I don't even know how to explain it. It was the worst I had ever felt my entire life. But when I started addressing my past and started surrounding myself around people who had what I wanted, who were healthy role models, because I didn't have healthy role models growing up, life started looking a lot differently for me. And I started feeling a lot different, And so for me, it took time for my brain to level out. And I had to see exactly what was up with my mental health. Well, 100% I know I have anxiety. And I used to think anxiety was a mental thing, like racing thoughts. I never thought that it could be an actual physical thing. And the physical aspect I'm talking about is I get dysregulated when I go around uncomfortable people, or when I'm triggered, or, it's not imaginary in my head of why I become triggered. I might not consciously be aware of why am I getting triggered right now, but my brain remembers everything from the past. My brain has collected so much data throughout my life that it is impossible for me to remember every single thing I had been through. So what I like to do when I get dysregulated and I have anxiety is it's the way I talk to myself. Before 12-step programs, I used to beat myself up. I would freak out even more when I would have, get anxiety. Like, I would make it worse. And it's because nobody ever taught me how to not make it worse. I was doing the best I could with the tools I had, or let's say did not have. So for me, life started looking different when I started treating myself better, when I started talking to myself nice, positive self-talk all the time. And it can't just be here and there. For me, I had to make it a part of my life every second of every day until my brain was like, okay, we do love ourselves. I mean, it was hard work, and people talk about, I hear people mention about, oh, well, I can't do these affirmations. It hurts too bad. I get angry. Well, that's normal. That is normal reaction to affirmations when we've been telling ourselves our whole life that we're a piece of shit or we're not good enough. That is normal for the brain to react like that. And so every time I forced myself to overcome that feeling and allowed myself to feel that feeling and tell myself, it's okay, you are safe, I had to be my own motivator. And when I started being my own motivator and stopped talking to myself like crap, life started looking different also. So for me, I'll shoot back to the anxiety. I've had a rough life. And yes, I am responsible for about 96% of those things. But for me, even with medication, I was still anxious. I was still having panic attacks. So what is the difference in me taking meds and not taking meds if I'm still having a panic attack? So for me, I've learned to embrace the emotions instead of fight them or obsess over them or worry. I've learned to accept my emotions as they arise because they are my body's way of telling me, hey, something isn't right with this situation. And I'm able to step back and pause and be like, why am I being triggered right now? And then whatever question I get answered, I get to that. Why am I being triggered? Well, this person reminds me of this person. And then keep asking myself, well, why is that? And just keep going with the why, until I get an answer that I'm satisfied with, until I get an understanding of why I am having this trigger. I get very dysregulated when I go places. Like not everywhere I go, I get dysregulated. But some places I go, I do, especially if I'm around new people. And that is why I love to do Zoom meetings, because I'm at home, I'm safe, and I'm still working my recovery. I tried for 2 months to force myself to go to in-person AA meetings. And I was going to this one meeting, we'll say meeting A. I was going to this meeting, and I had a lot of triggers at this meeting. I really did. But I would continue to force myself to go to these meetings, force myself to share, and I would be dysregulated and anxious the whole time. And then I went to, let's say, meeting B, totally different meeting, and I did not get dysregulated. So the thing that I've learned, it doesn't matter if I'm on medication. If my environment is triggering me, I am still going to be triggered. It might taper it down a little bit, but if I can't learn how to accept this trigger and accept this emotion for what it is, and if I can't learn to talk to myself nice, to be my own motivator, to be my own coach, my own advocate, loving parent, blah, 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 to show up for myself, if I can't do that, then I'm not going to be able to cope with this trigger. It's a scary feeling. It's a scary emotion. And I think for me, we're not taught, nobody's taught how to deal with these feelings we have inside. You know what I'm saying? And then here we are, an adult, and we're trying to figure life out. We're trying to, we're doing the best we can with what we know. And the thing is that, I've recently tried this medication, and I told myself, if it causes me to feel emotionally or spiritually blocked, I am not going to take it. But I had to give it a chance, and nope, it didn't work with the dysregulation, so I quit taking it. But I gave it a chance. I don't believe that there's nothing out there for me that could stop my dysregulation, that could stop my anxiety. Because like I said, I was on benzos and I was still having panic attacks. I was still anxious, and so what I've learned is I'm learning how to accept my triggers, accept the dysregulation, accept the anxiety, and really step back and ask myself, well, why am I being triggered? And the more I do that, the more I can work through it, the faster I can work through it. Before, when I used to get anxious or get dysregulated, it would take me hours to calm down. It would take me hours, sometimes half a day. I would beat myself up mentally. I would feel sorry for myself. It was just a lot of negative inner talk. But now I can bounce back within 30 minutes, just long enough for my nervous system to calm down. Maybe even 25. Like within 30 minutes, I'm good. I bounce back. Am I having to bounce myself back like over 15 times a day? Yes, I am. But that's just the price I've paid for living the type of life I've lived, for all the things I'm going through. But we're humans. We adapt. We are very good at adapting. And by me surrounding myself in 12-step programs and being around people who have experienced the same thing I've experienced is the only way I've been able to grow. I cannot grow in isolation. I tried for 10 years, So I like to share my experience and what I had with my psychiatric meds and my mental health, because I've overcame a lot of my mental health disorders that I have been diagnosed with in the past, based on the fact I did not know how to regulate my emotions. I did not have any healthy coping skills. I didn't have people that were emotionally there for me. I mean, all these things contribute to mental health problems. We are not born with these mental health diagnoses. And I'm not talking about autism. I'm talking about, depression, anxiety, PTSD, bipolar, BPD, ADHD. And that's another thing. I've been diagnosed with ADHD a long, long time ago. And for me, when I first came off my meds, I could see all the symptoms of ADHD in me, right? And there's a lot of things I do today that I'm like, yep, it's because of that. But I feel that people use that as a crutch and as an excuse to justify why they can't get things done that they're supposed to get done. Why they don't want to take responsibility for not taking action. And they justify and make excuses. And the reason I feel this way and think this way is because I used to use it as a crutch. I did the same exact thing. And I had to learn to live with my ADHD characteristics. I had to figure out a way to stimulate my dopamine and, organize my schedule. Like, I forget every single thing. If I did not utilize my calendar app and did have like 200 alarms, I would forget everything. My brain is just always just jumping. But honestly, when I started meditation, like for example, I used to twirl my hair like 24/7. I was just always such an anxious person, and I wasn't on any medication, and I would just have like racing thoughts. But when I started meditation, within a couple months, I noticed, wait a second, I'm not twirling my hair anymore. Or wait a second, I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not doing that. And I know it's from meditation and self-reflection. I know that for a fact, because before meditation, I could not pause. I could not stop myself from saying something to somebody. I was a very impulsive person. I was a very anxious person. And so I believe that we are our own teacher. We are responsible for how we act. We're responsible for the choices we make. And so if you have mental health issues, do not let your mental health define who you are, because healing is possible. You can get through anything that you want to get through with willingness and honesty. There's so many resources out here. There are so many things that we can do, and that's why I created this channel, to share what I've been through and what I'm going through and how I deal with it. And, everything's a choice. We all can choose. And I choose recovery. I choose to do better. I choose not to listen to my brain when it doesn't want to do something that's going to benefit me. I choose life instead of misery. I don't choose pain. I embrace pain, because when pain comes, it's telling me something internally is not right. And so unless I'm willing to address it, my pain will not go away. But when I started healing from my past, a lot of those mental health disorders and stuff started to dissipate, the symptoms and everything. And, I don't like to identify with anything. I don't like identification. I don't like to say, oh, I have ADHD. I like to say I have ADHD characteristics, because that's not who I am. That's just a label. I don't like labels. I'm not good with labeling. So, whatever you're going through, it's never too hard to overcome. We just have to figure out how we're going to overcome it.